Day Rangers looking for the outlaws.
Welcome back to our next segment of Inside the News. Glad to have you with us. Ben Brunson, Guy Wehman, and we've got Frank Vernuccio up in New York State. This is typically our international issue, and that's where we're going to start, because we're going to start by talking about Australia. And Ben, Australia has put together a coalition of over 115 countries that are willing to investigate and this China starting this thing. What do you think about that, Ben?
Well, God bless Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister of Australia. He heads the Liberal Party, which ironically is the right of center Conservative Party in Australia as compared to the Labour Party there. And he has done a great job. He's close friends with Donald Trump. They've coordinated on a lot of things. And Australia has taken much heat and much threats from China for a couple of its positions. It has joined the U.S. in banning Huawei from doing anything in its 5G, growing 5G infrastructure there. And it has led the charge to call for an investigation by the World Health Organization into China, into the Wuhan flu, the origins of it, the reality of where it went. It's obvious that the Chinese know that it came out of the Wuhan Virology Institute. It's quite obvious in everything they've done. Going back to January, when they fired the head of that institute, they shut it down. That's one of the first things they did. And they brought in their senior virologist, who is a woman who is a senior person in the CCP and a general in the People's Liberation Army. They brought her in to take over that institute because they knew they had a problem. That was where the virus escaped from. So the Chinese are fighting this all the way. They're threatening Australia all the way. And like I said, God bless Scott Morrison for standing up to China. He's showing the rest of the world the right way to go forward.
Okay, Frank, 115 countries, that's quite a bit. What do you think their success rate will be? Because you know the United States is going to join in on this, Frank.
Well, I think the success rate is going to be significant because a lot of countries are feeling the heat right now and growing slowly, I think, but surely. There is a move among the nations of Asia and the Indo-Pacific area to understand the imminent threat from China in many different spheres, economic, military particularly, whether it's Vietnam, India, and Japan, who I think will be the big three in terms of bringing this entire thing together. There's a feeling that this has to happen, and it has to happen sooner rather than later. Australia is already feeling the international heat from Beijing. The CCP is breathing down the neck of the Australian government, trying to influence them every way possible. But I think the nations of that area see through China with very clear eyes, perhaps eyes far clearer than the American left does not have. And they realize this is the time, if you're going to stop China, now is the time to do it. So I think the success rate is going to be significant.
Okay, Ben, you're our Middle East expert here, and Iran, they had some troubles here. I believe that Iran was that stopgap between China and Italy as people were coming into Italy. What's going on with Iran right now, Ben?
Well, before we talk about Iran, I want to say one thing, picking up on Frank's point about Australia, because one of the interesting things about Australia and what Scott Morrison is achieving is that he's showing the potential future coalition. I've started to talk about the theme of a new NATO, a NATO that is oriented towards China as opposed to Russia. Not that I think Russia is a great country or anything, but they're a aging superpower. They're losing their ability, their economy's a fraction of the size of the United States or China. It's only about a $1.5–2 trillion economy, completely dependent on energy. Just a small country, but China's the real threat. Russia has joined with Australia, for instance, in this call to investigate China. India's there, Japan, UK, all of the EU. This is the potential in the future for a new type of organization that really becomes a block to counter the aggressive empire-building tendencies of China. that they have that they are clearly showing to the entire world. So I'm sorry to segue, but back to that topic, but it's so important what's going on there. And it really is the future strategic struggle that we face in the next 20 to 30 years.
Okay. Well, now, Frank, then let's pick up on that, though. But I guess my whole point was getting from Iran, going to Italy, and how it's. Well, this came from Europe now, forgetting that this originally came from China. And because we put the block January 31st and would not let Chinese people in, on travel and everything, they actually found the back door through Italy and Europe to come into New York, Frank.
Well, the Democrats are rather desperate, particularly the Democrats of New York State. Remember, back in January, when President Trump put the ban on travel from China, the Democrats said he was racist and xenophobic, that there was no need to do so whatsoever. In fact, as late as March, the New York City Department of Health Commissioner said, go out and enjoy yourself. Take the subway. Go to Chinatown. Back in January, she also said, go to the Chinese Lunar New Year. Get in that crush of the population. Don't worry about this sort of thing. I think they realized they made fatal errors, which if the public ever really acknowledged it, could be the death knell for a lot of Democratic candidates. So they are trying to say that, well, this really didn't come from China at all. You don't have to worry about it. Look, the way this spread into Europe is crystal clear. Guest workers from China to northern Italy, where there are a number of factories, came primarily from the Wuhan area. Mm-hmm. They spread the disease to northern Italy, from where it spread to the rest of Europe and also to the United States. So you could say that there was a stop, perhaps between China and the United States. Some of it went to Europe first and then to the United States, but the origin was clearly and explicitly China. And if you look at the Trump orders back in January, it didn't say if you come directly from China. It said if your point of origin was China, you would be banned from travel to the United States. The Democrats are desperate to obfuscate that point. That's what they're trying to do. Now, fortunately for them, they have the media, which goes 100% to cover their tail, and they're hoping that this will occur at this point too.
All right, that was Frank Vernuccio. He's with USAGovPolicy.com, the American Analysis of News and Media. Ben Brunson, the author of the Falstaff, Enigma, and Esther, Sling. You can find Ben at benbrunson.com, Amazon.com. We're going to take a time out, be back with our election trail segment. Stay with us.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.